banjo now, just to tell you a little bit for people that might not be familiar with it, is we record for the Rounder, Flatter, Blacker record company in Boston, Massachusetts, but they make the records everywhere. And so one time they sent us to this place called Nashville, and we got there a week after it had an international convention of banjo players. And there was still residual pockets of ignorance around places where they had all gathered together. And it was dangerous to drive through there because you would become totally disoriented unless you were wearing one of your thought repellent hats. And they had invented a thing at this convention. In fact, they took a picture of these guys, and there's a guy over in Pennsylvania who's got it, and it's got like 200 banjo players in it, and there's nothing there. Only way you know what it is, there's a caption under there. Or maybe it's when you look at it, there's nothing here. I haven't figured out which way it is, but anyways, told you that to tell you this. They had invented these things called banjo jokes, which I thought was a redundancy. And people was going around telling them without regard for political correctness or nothing. And some of them was vicious. They were saying things like 50 banjos at the bottom of the Miami River was a good start. And a banjo player up to his neck in concrete meant you didn't have enough concrete. And the only difference between a banjo and a Harley Davidson is you could tune a Harley Davidson. Or the only difference between a banjo and an anchor was you might tie a rope on the anchor before you threw it in the water. Or the first 3 words a banjo player's kid learns is attention Kmart shoppers. You could find where the pink flamingos live by the banjo players on the front lawn. I better stop. Now, I don't want anybody to repeat these. So the only reason I'm mentioning them so you know what not to say. Like, don't go out saying to somebody the only difference between a banjo and a trampoline is you take your shoes off to jump on a trampoline. But, so hearing these things, and they go on and on, I've got to stop. But there is more. I could tell that this was not right, and so we have taken a stand against this. And we've decided to become more positive about the banjo and banjo players and say some of the positive things you can think of, because there are a lot of them. Like, for instance, if it wasn't for the banjo, all the bluegrass songs wouldn't sound alike.
You're lucky you don't live in Cincinnati, number one, saying stuff like that, because you're already in trouble with the NAABP.
I'm only trying. If it wasn't for the banjo players, you couldn't tell if a stage was level when they drew out of both sides of their mouth. There's a lot of good things about the banjo. And so anyways, told you I'd tell you this. We sent our banjo player to banjo camp. We saw one advertised, banjo camp, which I thought was a mystery, because how many of them things would you need to start a campfire to begin with? That's right. And he got kicked out. And they called us to come get him. And we wasn't even sure 4 consenting adults was legal to sign out one banjo player. But emergency trip we made over there. And what had happened was, you might not know this, and I don't want to shock you, but there wasn't a lot of creative energy at banjo camp. And they had decided once they'd played all those banjo notes to not give the songs names but just numbers, which is where the term banjo number comes from. And our guy only knew a certain number, and so we counted him all the way up and they sent him home, and this is number 7.